My name is DoctorPentakill, and today I'm going to bring you the most in-depth, insane, comprehensive flying guide you've ever seen in your life. Or on my channel. It's going to turn you from this. Bullshit. That was definitely too vertical. Into this. You ain't looking so healthy anymore.
Damn, I keep getting blown up.
Oh, I found a large hole! 36 kills! So let's get into it. All right, so when you're flying a plane, it's important to keep in mind that each plane handles differently depending on the type of plane that it is. For example, the Ju-188 here that we're looking at, this thing is pure bomber. It doesn't have any guns that we can currently use. As you can see, it does have guns on the front and back and multiple crew slots for the plane, but currently it's not implemented into the game. So right now, this thing is just pure bomber, and it's also very big.
That's what she
When
said.
you're flying a big plane, they're a lot harder to control. You have to give yourself a lot more time to straighten out and a lot more time to turn, so keep that in mind. So this is what I would like to call a large classification of plane. Larger classifications of planes are a lot harder to control. They need a lot more time to maneuver. So you have to plan out your routes and your bombing runs a little bit more carefully. And these are primarily used for taking out ground troops and vehicles. Now let's get into the medium classification. A medium classification of plane would be something like the BF-110 or the ME-410 or even the Ju-87s. These planes have a lot more agility than the large classifications like the Ju-188, so you don't need quite as much time to plan your route. They're a lot more forgiving. They have way better turn radius, and they can even fight back against other bombers and mid-sized planes. Now, the medium classification plane generally loses out to the smaller classification of plane, which would be the fighters, like the 109s or the P-38s. The small classification of planes, these are very agile and primarily used to take out other planes, but however, they do have smaller bomb loads or rockets which can be used for taking out infantry. All right, so let's get into some basics of flying, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the information in the top left. The first one you see is the TAS, which stands for true airspeed. The true airspeed of an aircraft is the speed of the aircraft relative to the air mass through which it is flying. The next is ALT, which is your altitude, which tells you how high in the air you are. The next thing you're going to see is throttle, which is the percentage of speed at which your prop is spinning. So currently we are at 55% power. Now you can use your mouse wheel to scroll up to increase that amount. You can actually also use shift to increase it incrementally. And the next thing you're going to see is my flaps. That is the current position of your flaps. You can change that by pressing 1 and 2, and you can see that each type of plane has a different type of flap. Generally speaking, they have takeoff flaps, landing flaps, and combat flaps. Combat flaps are used for combat. You do not want to use your combat flaps when you're in a dive. If you have your combat flaps or any flaps out for that matter while you're in a dive, they will most likely break off, making it nearly impossible to control your plane, or in fact you might just crash. So make sure your flaps are always up when you're in a dive. You generally do want to use your flaps if you're fighting another plane, which means you can go into a turn and then throw your flaps on, and that will increase your drag, which will help you to turn faster, making it easier for you to get behind another plane that might not be using their flaps. So that's why it's important to do that. Now you can use takeoff flaps and landing flaps as well, and those particular flaps are extremely aggressive on the drag factor, so be very careful with that. You would only want to use them temporarily to help assist you in a really tight turn, making sure that when you're done that you're taking them back to the up position. Now let's just get into how to complete a turn and a little bit of the controls. Your mouse is going to be moving the nose of your plane around. You can actually use just your mouse to turn your plane. However, if you're going to use your basic flight controls, which is WASD, that's going to make the turns even faster. Now, A and D are what roll your plane left and right. Okay? W is what's going to put your nose straight down. S is what's going to put your nose straight up. When you're making a turn, you're generally just using S. and you'll be starting your turn with using A or D. So let's get into a basic turn here. I don't need to use my mouse whatsoever, but I do use it to assist in the turn. And that you basically just move your mouse in the direction that you want to turn. So whenever you're starting a turn, just start to roll with A or D. And then once your plane is on a side, that's when you use the S key. And then you use your mouse to help just direct it and give you vision of the direction that you're turning. And turning is really just that simple. Start with a roll, hit your S key, and use your mouse to give you vision and help assist with the turn. That's it. Now let's just talk about some general diving and bombing advice. The steeper you're diving, the more time you need to give yourselves to pull up. Okay, planes, especially at high speeds, need a lot more time to be able to pull out of that dive. Speed is always a big indication of how much time you need to pull up. The faster you're going, the more vertical you're going, the sooner you need to be pulling up. So as you can see here, if I'm going straight down, I would probably want to start pulling up around 300, no later than 200, right? However, if you're just going in a very slight incline, you can just pull up pretty much whenever. Just remember, the bigger the classification of plane that you're in, the more time you need to allow yourself to complete your actions. One other thing we can talk about is the rudder, which is Q and E. And as you see, that's on the very tail of the plane. And when you hit it, it just scoots your plane around. And what that's used for is helping your plane turn around in low speed scenarios, or if you really want to turn a lot faster. But generally, when you're using your rudder, you start to lose a lot of altitude. For example, if I'm turning like this and then I use my rudder to help me turn around, as you can see, it's going to put my nose down, but it is going to help me get around at the cost of altitude. Okay. Another time when you might want to use your rudder is if you're going extremely vertical and you start to lose your momentum. You need to use your rudder in order to get your nose back down. As you can see here, we're climbing vertical and we're starting to die out, and you see my nose is starting to dip. In this case, if I wanted to turn my nose around, I can use my rudder to help kick myself back around vertical and help me get back into position to straighten out. And that's pretty much it for basic flying, guys. So when you drop your bombs, the bombs come out of the bottom compartment of your bomber here. They're not propelled at all, which means they just fall out of the plane. So if you're traveling like so, low to the ground, and you drop your payload, so what happens is your bombs are going to continue straight this way when your target is going to be down here. So the momentum just carries your bombs forward this way, which is why if you aim your plane down at a 45-degree angle, 45 might be a bit steep. So maybe you want to go like right around a 25-degree angle, depending on how accurate. If there's buildings that you need to get over, then maybe you want to go steeper. But just keep in mind, if you're going steeper, that means you need to pull up sooner. That's a big mistake people are making, that when they angle their nose down, they're not giving themselves enough time to pull up. That's why if you're going in at about 25 degrees, you're still getting that nice angle of approach, so that when you drop your bombs, they're going to go straight down this way towards your target, and then you could just go ahead and pull up. Now, the steeper the incline you go, the more accurate you can be, the more pinpoint you can be. For example, buildings. For example, if there's a unit right here that you want to kill, if you're coming in at this angle and you drop your bomb, you're going to hit here. Or if you're over here and you drop your bomb, it's going to go past your target. If you were coming down at a steeper angle, you can clear that building. Of course, you want to make sure that you're giving yourselves time to pull up, but when you're at a nice angle like this, your bombs are going to come out and they're going to go straight down. So always keep in mind that when you drop your bombs, they're basically just going to be following you, the direction that you were going. The more vertical you are when coming down, the more time you need to give yourselves to pull up. So when are you going to drop your payload? Well, let's get into some actual live bombing runs so I can show you. Okay, so here we are. We're about to start a bombing run, and let's go over some of my strategies here. This particular screen right here is very important. You can get a lot of information of where to bomb. I see a lot of people saying, mark targets, mark coordinates. I need to know where things are. They don't know how to think for themselves. Well, I'm going to teach you how to think for yourself. Okay. So what you need to understand is where the targets can be. It's not too hard to figure out, especially when there is a mark, which is nice, but not necessary, because on this particular screen, you can get generally that information for yourselves. For example, the best times to bomb, like I mentioned before, are on invasion maps, because you know where people are. They're spawning back here. Okay. Their tanks are coming in from the roadways. So in this map, you can actually see tanks. This is a live action feed. You can see the tanks coming in. So look very carefully here to gain information for your targets. In this particular case, I can see they have a tank down here, and that's what I'm going to be looking for when I'm diving down, to see if he's moved or see if he's stationary. You can also look for the tank muzzle flashes. They're very noticeable. So if you see a muzzle flash, boom, he's given himself away for you, and you can easily hit your target. Okay, so the golden ranges for the bomber, guys, when you're approaching something, is going to be around 500 on your altitude and around 1200 meters away from your target. That's when I start my dive. So you need to be in position. You need to already know where you're going to be going, because when you're bombing, it's a straight line. Right? It's a straight line to your target. So make sure you're already on that line. Okay. You can't be turning and trying to make last minute adjustments with your bomber, because every movement you make is going to change the trajectory and the outcome of where your bombs are going to land. So that's why you have to be on a straight, narrow path to your target prior to being there. So you have to plan bombing runs out. Okay, so let's take a look at this one, and I'm going to walk you through my thought process. Right here, I can see the tank shooting, so I know he's not here anymore. I can see that he moved right here. So when I'm coming down, I've already planned where I'm going to bomb. I'm going to try to land my bombs right in this area all the way up. Okay, so let's take a look, and to do that, I'm going to show you where you need to drop your bombs and whatnot. So here we are coming in. And let's look at the information. I'm already at 800 altitude, 1900. So I need to start my descent. And now I can wait a bit longer to start my descent. But if the longer I wait to go down, the sharper of an inclination I'm going to have to be at to hit my target. So it just depends how sharp of an inclination you want to be at. If it's a nice open field, you don't have to be going down too sharp. But if you have to get over those buildings like I was talking about before, then you got to go down sharp, which means you wait longer to go down. But this is a pretty straightforward run. Everything's nice and open, and I'm just going to be bombing this path. So I'm a little bit too high, so I'm going to start making my way down and getting into that golden range around 1200, 500. And you see how I'm rocking to the side. It's going to start rocking, and I'm just trying to straighten out and hone in on my area of approach. So as you can see, I'm coming down perfectly in the center of where I want it to be. Now, if I drop my bombs right here, it's going to be a bit early, but just to give you an idea, if I were to drop them right here, they would probably land right around in this area, which goes to show you how much they travel when you drop your bomb. Okay. So if I want to land right here, I'm going to have to drop my bombs right around now. And I do. So I release here. It's going to land right in this area. And what do we see? Well, we see tanks down there. And that's where I'm trying to hit. And then I'm trying to hit all the way through. So another thing I want to give you guys some advice on is if you have a large payload, like for example on this bomber, I have actually 6 bombs, dropping them 2 at a time. So I essentially have 3 different drops. I don't have to drop them all at this time. I could drop 1 and then circle around and hit them again on the way back, which can be beneficial if you're trying to bomb 2 different areas or cover a larger spread of the map. Like if you're only trying to hit 1 tank over here and then you want to kill a bunch of guys over here, then you can hit them on the way back. Right, so then I would fly down, I'd circle out like this and come back in like this. But in this particular case, I want to hit here, I want to hit here, and I want to hit back here. So I am just going to drop my entire payload. So as you can hear, I just dropped one bomb, and now I'm going to follow through. And I drop everything all in that area, immediately pulling up and making sure your throttle is maxed. Okay, and boom, we hit the tank and we hit a bunch of units, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. We're going to go back, arm up again, and let's talk you through one more bombing run. As you can see, I didn't get too close to the ground. I didn't take any damage. And ooh, this is a bonus tip. When you guys are approaching this rearm area, you want to start turning prior to getting to the rearm area, because when you're flying a plane and you're bombing, it's all about being efficient. And so if you wait until you hear that click and then start turning, you're wasting a bunch of time. You can start turning prior to getting there. So what I do is around 200, I roll on my side and I start turning because I still have a lot of momentum. As you can see, I'm rearmed and I'm almost turned around again. So I'm turning this thing around and I'm going to be positioning for my next run. Okay. So this time I wanted to hit a little bit more on the left and straight through to the target. So here we are. We're at that golden range. I'm at 600, 1200. I need to start moving down. And you're going to see that here. If you are overshooting your target, that's a good time to drop your speed. If everything's great, you can keep your speed up. Like I said, drop your throttle ahead of time if you're not quite in position. That's going to give you more time. And I would suggest dropping it around 40 to 50. And you can just kill the engine completely, but having the engine on helps you maneuver your plane, so keep that in mind. So here we are, we're coming down. I saw an explosion right here. It could be a tank, it could have been a bomb, but that's making me think I want to start hitting this area right here and then straight through. My last run was like this. This time I'm going to do like this at X and just hit this whole area. You have to vary where you bomb too. If you keep bombing one side, the enemy is going to get smart and say, I ain't running down that side anymore. I'm going to run down the other side. So it's important to mix up your game a little bit in that aspect. So we're coming down. As you can see, I'm tilted on the side. If I drop my bomb right now, it's actually going to land way over here. So I might have to make a micro adjustment to get that angled back into the area where I want it to hit. That's why it's important to be really straight on with your target. If you're on the left, your bomb's going to go that way. If you're on the right, your bomb's going to go that way. So make sure that you're ahead of time straight down. That's what you're trying to aim for. But as you get more experienced, you can do little micro adjustments like this on your way down. So I drop here. You heard the drop. That bomb is not going to be super on target. It's probably going to hit right around here. All these bombs are going to hit right along here. And oh, I didn't even realize that. That's a lot of kills right there. So, here we go. Back up and throttle up, flaps up, everything like that. And we are on our way to rearm. Now, as you can see, I'm pressing C to look around. Not that it really matters in a bomber because you can't do anything. Okay, here we are entering that golden range. I'm trying to get into position here. I slowed down because I wasn't quite in position. And this is a great thing you can do with this German bomber. It actually has like a see-through glass window. You can slow right down if you're further back on your approach, and you can look down with C and zoom in through that window and get some intel on the ground of where you want to bomb. So that's what I'm doing right here. So start to angle down. You see my throttle's down. It's helping me get back into position because I wasn't quite there yet. Drop the payload. I really need to get my altitude up here or I'm going to damage my plane. And there we are. So I hope that answers all the questions you have on bombers. If you have any more questions on bombers, please leave them in the comments below and I can answer them. Now let's get into some fighters. I'm looking for targets, and I see a P-38 appear on my right. So you have to think about how you want to approach this. Now, you got to think, okay, this guy doesn't see me. He's coming down on his approach. So this is where you have to exercise a little bit of patience. You don't want to start shooting immediately. You want to wait to that right moment. You want to wait for the right moment to really unload. And right here in the turn is not that moment, because there's so many little trajectory things that can affect your shot and your ability to land multiple shots, because in this game you have to unload. You have to really be able to empty a large amount of your belt onto these guys. So exercising patience and waiting for the right time to shoot at someone is the preferred method. So shooting him on the turn here is not that great for me, because I don't think I'll be able to get a long spray of bullets on him, and it'll alert him that I'm behind him, which means he'll start being evasive, which will make it hard for me to take him down. But if I wait for him just to be in that perfect straight line, now I can start just absolutely unloading and shredding him. And at this point, there's no escape. Once you get that first initial solid spray on him and he starts realizing he's being shot at, well, by that time it's too late for him. He is dead. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about a few defensive things that you can do when you're flying in your fighter. Okay, so if somebody's shooting at you, you can do something called scissoring. The general idea behind scissoring is you're trying to disguise what you're doing in an attempt to get him to overshoot you. So what you start doing is you start turning and you drop your throttle. Okay? Drop your throttle, and you can even use your flaps. And so you're going to press C and look back, and when you can see he's almost going to have a shot on you, then you turn the other way and you scissor back this way, looking behind you, waiting for him to turn around and get in position. And you're going to notice that as you're scissoring him, he's going to slowly get closer and closer to you until it's too late for him to realize that he's going to overshoot you. And once he overshoots you, now he's in front of you, and now you can begin to pursue him. So that's the general idea of scissoring. For fighters like the Focke-Wulf, this particular plane is meant for boom and zoom, unlike, say, like the P-38. So you don't really want to fight a P-38 in a turning battle. You want to fight them in a speed battle, which is known as booming and zooming. And to boom and zoom, what you want to do is gain altitude. And because you are lighter and faster, you can climb much easier, which means they're going to stall out if they try to attack you. So what you want to do is you want to do a move called the hammerhead, which also leads into the boom and zooms. Let me show you how this move works. Okay, so basically you start with a boom and zoom. You dive down on your target, and once you're done booming out of the air, you're going to start the zooming process, which means you go straight up. You don't want to, this is where you don't want to engage in a turn with him, because he's turning out of the way. You're climbing straight up like so, keeping your speed and momentum moving while he's bleeding his speed by turning. So if you engage in a turning fight, you're going to lose. But if you just go straight through and you climb straight up, you can get that altitude and just keep booming and zooming on him and shooting at him like a fish in the barrel. I'm going to teach you something called the hammerhead, right? And what that means is that you're basically going straight up and then boom, turning your plane around straight down. And I'm going to show you the techniques for that. So as you come straight down like so, you're going to pick up a tremendous amount of speed, and you're going to use that speed to climb back up again, right? That's the boom and zoom. Now, if you go straight vertical like so, eventually you're going to run out of momentum and your plane is going to start to stall out. But you want your nose to come down. So once your airspeed drops really low, that's when you use your back rudder, and it's going to help you kick your nose straight down But be careful, you don't want to get into a flat spin like we almost did. So you just tap your rudder to help turn your nose around, and then you can go straight down. Now, if they had followed you straight up, they're probably not going to be able to get as high as you. So what's going to happen is it's going to look like this. You're going up, he's going to stall out here, but you're going to keep going, and then you're going to stall out, and now look, you're behind him. So that's generally how this move works. Those are some general defensive and attacker moves that you can use. Okay, so let's talk about some general information you need to know about when flying your plane. Why can't I spawn in my plane? Now, there's two reasons why you might not be able to spawn into your plane in game. Nobody can spawn in a plane the first 60 seconds of the match, and also each map has a specified amount of planes that can be in the air at one time, or a specified amount of types of planes that can be in the air at one time. For example, one fighter and one bomber can be in the air at one time. In the Normandy campaign for the airfield map, players can get into the biplanes on the battlefield on the runway and use them to participate in the fight. Also, the balloons that are attached to the cables in that map for the Allies only can be destroyed as an alternate objective to gain reinforcements, and you can shoot those down with your plane. Bullets have range, and I want to say it's around 1,200 meters. Anything outside of that, the bullets seem to be ineffective or just disappear. So keep that in mind so you're not shooting too early and wasting your rounds. Pilots have stamina. The longer you are fighting and bombing, the more you will deplete their stamina, which will affect their ability to control the plane. Another tip about flying is that if you are doing a bombing run or a rocket run, make sure that you survive long enough for your bombs and rockets to explode prior to crashing. If you crash and your bombs and rockets haven't exploded yet, then what happens is they become neutral, killing not only your enemies but your teammates as well. So make sure you always try to survive your bombing runs until the rockets and bombs explode. Now let's talk about the best times to use a plane and when not to use a plane. The best times to use a plane are on invasion maps when you're either attacking or defending. Also, another good time to use a plane is when the area that the troops are running to are outdoors. Generally speaking, if there are a lot of buildings, it can be hard to get a lot of kills. So the only time you'd want to use a plane in that scenario is if they have a fighter or a bomber that is really making it difficult for you guys to complete your objectives. It's also a really bad time to use a plane if you are particularly low on tickets and you need to capture objectives, because as you know, vehicles cannot capture objectives, so it's best to be on the ground in those scenarios. I don't generally recommend using a plane when you have a low ticket count, unless they have some tanks that are really ruining your day and you need to take them out. But then again, that can generally be done on the ground as well, and then you can transfer over to the point. All right, there's one more move I want to show you that you can do in your bomber, and this is kind of like a last ditch effort. If there's a guy shooting you, okay, you can pull out the old battlefield, the old Rambo maneuver. Okay, and this does work. I have done it before one time, but it's very rare, but you can do it. So what you want to do, as soon as you start getting shot at, right, which generally happens on your way to rearm, as soon as you start getting shot at, you hit the F key and you're going to start to exit your plane. Okay, now you turn around and you just start blasting them with your submachine gun, and if you get them just right, you could kill the pilot or even damage an engine and take them down. And it is possible. So I recommend trying it. And if you ever do it, let me know. Send me the clip. I want to see it. Thanks for watching my flying guide, and I hope it turns you into that ace pilot that you've always dreamed of being. And remember, I'm live Monday to Friday, 6 to 10 p.m. PST, twitch.tv/DoctorPentakill. See you there, guys.